do it. Hey, everybody, this is Nathaniel Provencio, and as always, Doc Worster is in the
Hey,
house. What's going on? And I've got one of my oldest friends, in the whole like school leadership game on the show, Scott Borba. What's going on, Scott? How you doing, man?
Happened, Daniel. Yeah, things are going well on the left coast out here in California. It was nice to have you back here doing some PD with
Yeah,
my team a couple weeks ago. It was great. It was good to see you. Good to reconnect.
it was awesome.
Nathaniel always delivers, right?
He
I
always delivers.
It's always memorable with
He can,
Mr.
he can
P.
work for Domino's. He always delivers.
I
Scott, where you at?
Yeah.
I'm in Lee Grand is where I work. I live in Atwater. It's Merced County. It's right smack dab in the middle of the state. So I'm in the Central Valley, about same distance north to south to Mexico to Oregon, and then
Mm.
I could drive 2 hours and go snow skiing or drive 2 hours and go surfing. So
You got a bit of everything there.
a little bit of
Yeah.
everything.
I grew up not far, or I spent a few years of my childhood not far from Sacramento.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Similar
Yeah.
experience.
San Juan Unified.
Oh yeah,
San Juan Unified.
absolutely.
It's a great area, man. Like I've done so much work in that. I guess it's Central Valley. Is that what it's called? The Central Valley. And
Yeah,
it literally is like the farm, the garden of America. It's like such a huge farming community, and I was like, this is where like pistachios and like almonds and stuff like come from. Like it. I grew up in the South, and like we don't have farms like you guys do in California. We have like soybeans and corn. You know what I mean?
for
But like
sure.
in California out west, it's different, man. It's the real deal. So it's interesting. And I guess Scott, working in that area, sometimes like our hemisphere of interest kind of like shapes our leadership style. Would you know what I mean? A little bit, like, we've met with a lot of like urban principals, and they have some challenges that are, kind of different, some smaller rural areas and, but I think sometimes like where we are sometimes creates who we are in a way. Would you agree with that a little bit?
Oh, 100%. I grew up in an urban area. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. Moved out to college out here in the Valley, and just fell in love with the slower pace,
Mm,
love with the culture, the people, the Hispanic Latino community, embraced just a lot of customs and cultures from them. Served in schools that really serve the population of high poverty, high second language learners, and just that's been my niche for
yeah.
almost 20 years in admin. And so it's yeah, and it's shaped who I am as a leader for sure. I've connected with folks in urban, suburban, and rural areas, and being a rural leader, small school district leader, with this population is the most rewarding work I've ever done.
Love it. Now you're in a unique situation, and I see this a lot in and out west is where you're not only you're the superintendent, but principal superintendent, right? Is that correct?
What?
Superintendent and principal, small
Yeah.
district, right? 350 kids, one building, and I have my own board. Most of my work is principal work, observing, evaluating, feedback, being with kids, which I love, which energizes me. But then I am also the superintendent of the district as well. And then other things, curriculum decisions, things like that. But I've got a great team around me, that helps with the shared decision making, thought partners, people that push back and don't always say yes. So it makes it work.
So, so do you get to evaluate yourself then? Does like the
So my,
superintendent
my board
like,
evaluates me. Yeah, my board does.
as superintendent, but who evaluates that principal?
I think he's doing a great job.
All right,
That's right.
that's what I hear.
What's funny is the reason
Exceeds.
I looked for this position, specifically, I was a principal for 13 years, 14 years. And
Mm,
it got to a point where it's like I was tired of having to ask somebody's permission to try to be innovative, disruptive, and do the things that I felt were right for kids.
mm,
So, but I didn't want to sit in a district office and not be around kids.
Yeah.
And so, you're right, Nathan, California has this dual position. There's a number of
mm.
them. And so I get the best of both worlds. I wake up in the morning and I can ask my superintendent to do anything I want, and he always says yes.
Like a Bill Belichick kind of situation out there. Your coach and GM.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. I think Mike Holmgren did that too, right? I think Mike Holmgren, right, was played those two dual roles for the Seahawks for a little
Yeah,
bit, right?
not as successfully.
Not as successful, not as
Thank you,
successful.
Scott.
That is we were just we've been meeting with some very interesting innovators on our show, And that idea, like, and Scott, you just said something that resonated with me about having the opportunity to be innovative and to think a little bit outside the box. Because I got to tell you, man, the box ain't working.
Yeah.
The box ain't working. I wish it were. And I think the schools and the districts that are making the most success are the ones that are kind of like these positive deviants in a way. I just see that more and more, and I wish it was. I wish the average was excellence, but Scott, it's not. It's not. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, like, what are some things that you're really proud of that you've been able to do um, in your location that is sort of outside the box a little bit, where you're crushing it and getting some good results.
Some research-based ideas are good, right? Like RTI, right? We look at that and it's got a high effect size, and,
Yeah.
and so we use it, but I can do more with it here, right? I don't have somebody saying, Scott, you can't hire X amount of personnel. I can hire as many people as I can afford to hire,
Mm,
make cuts in order to add additional folks so that I have a more robust intervention program. So here I have a four-tiered system where, special education is my fourth tier, and the goal has been to keep kids out of special education.
mm,
Only identify students who truly qualify with a learning disability. And so over the last 7 years, we've built a system that has done exactly that. We have a lower referral rate than most districts in our county.
mm,
Um, we intervene in our tier three where I have a specialist for reading and math, and so we have go through the student study team process. We look for data. We give suggestions for improvement for tier one, tier two instruction, and if we don't see improvement, they go to tier three. We've seen those numbers drop
mm.
from high numbers of third grade and second grade non-readers to now we hardly have any third or second grade non-readers. They're all first grade and kindergarten,
It's
which is
awesome.
where we should be in tier three.
It's
And
awesome.
so by coupling that with the PLC process, and going through the plan, do, study, act cycle, the continuous improvement cycle, every couple of weeks, identifying our essential standards, looking at our common formative assessment data, we're able to adjust our tier two rotations where I put most of our resources,
Mm,
which is bringing more people in, investing in people.
yeah.
So I have an hour a day where I have, small group differentiated instruction happening based on assessment results
Mm,
are ongoing. And so we haven't even really addressed tier one instruction yet. I mean, that's
mm,
right. And that was one of the things I learned from my last district, being told from the district office, hey, we need to fix tier one.
yeah.
And so tier one is almost this moving target all the time, right? Here's what's most useful. Here's the most innovative practice, trying to really try to keep ping pong balls underwater,
Mm,
going from classroom to classroom, evaluating, giving feedback, and just trying to really help as many teachers as possible. So I thought, okay, here I'm going to try something different. I'm going to flip it upside down, build a strong tier four, tier three, tier two. And now, once those are strong, once my safety nets are tight, I'm going to hit tier
mm,
one like nobody's business.
Scott,
yeah.
it's funny how you said something about a district looking at innovative tier one practices. I just think we have talked with a lot of people who say we can't get the basics right for tier one, let alone the innovations.
Hmm.
So it's just interesting how people are trying to innovate something before I think we've gotten it down to where it probably should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are basic tier one? What's basic tier one?
Having
Mhm.
a strong curriculum.
Okay, but that keeps changing.
Yeah, well, what keep changing, I think, is just having a curriculum and having resources versus not having it.
Yeah.
I think having um, strong teaching practices, by which I mean, I think a lot of the things that we would say, it's knowing a strong learning target, making sure your students can do that. It's some of the questions that you do in PLCs. How do we know when
Mhm.
students know? It's incorporating that into every lesson, having a strong closure, again, having assessment that tells you what you need to follow up on. Um, and the other tier practice I don't hear a lot of is just writing, nonfiction
Mm,
writing, and incorporating writing more and more. So again, nothing too crazy, nothing too crazy.
Right.
Most it's pretty simple stuff, but I think we struggle because we try to do a lot of innovative, fun, neat things that don't accomplish what we want.
yeah,
And
it's
it's
fascinating.
simple, but simple stuff is very complex, right?
It can be.
Hmm.
Nothing simple about targeting a standard, creating an assessment, and then assuring that every kid in your classroom understands it. There's
Yeah.
Yeah.
nothing simple about that. And our kids change every year. Their needs change every year, so our teaching has to adapt. Our leadership has to adapt I mean, I look at, gosh, I've been doing this long enough to I remember what it was like pre-social media,
Mm,
pre-personal device, what that's done to the way we have to teach. I think about when I was a kid, if I wanted to watch The Wonderful World of Disney, I had to be sitting on my couch at 7:30 on a Sunday night.
that's right. That's right.
Now I have Disney Plus. I can stream anything I want, pause it, go get food, run some errands, and come back and finish it. That's the learning mindset that our students have, but the teacher mindset is still be on your couch at 7:30 for The Wonderful World of Disney.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it's not the things are changing. We have to adapt to these momentous changes. But we have some mindsets that have to shift.
Yeah.
I see it with my younger teachers. They understand that mentality. But then you have debates like inquiry versus direct instruction,
Mm,
right? Well, those are all tier one type instructional strategies. I love the idea of building thinking classrooms and hearing my students collaborate, communicate, and be creative and in unpacking their learning. But then at the same time, you need prior knowledge to activate in order to do that. And how do you get
yeah.
prior knowledge? Well, you have to do direct instruction.
Right.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
think they both have their place.
Yes. Yes.
Nathaniel, that's who we're talking tomorrow, by the way, the guy he just referenced.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Right on. That's really awesome.
Peter
Look at that.
Lidgdahl?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So you're opening for Peter, sort of, or maybe,
Yeah,
yeah,
man. Tell
or
him
maybe
I'm a
he's
big
opening for you.
fan.
I
Big
I
will.
fan.
will, we will tell him that.
So Scott, you mentioned like, it's like I'm trying to coin this term, pedagogical PTSD. It's like it's things just change so damn much.
Yeah.
And I think that with our teachers in our school, like great leadership is consistency. I think there's compassion and consistency, and I think that when we were in a profession that's just totally changing all the time, you talked about like, well, what curriculum is like, hey, here's an HQIM, but tomorrow it's going to be like highly questionable. But right now it's highly, it's things change so much. What people need is steadfast leadership, consistency, and knowing that I feel psychologically safe in my environment. So when these changes do happen, changes in kids, changes in demographics, changes in whatever we have to do, at least I know Scott's got me. You know what I mean? And I think that's important. And when a leader is a little too dynamic, a little too changing all over the place, and kind of like as changing
Running
with
after
everything
every
else,
penny.
chasing after the silver bullet,
Yep.
I can imagine how frustrating that is for teachers.
Yep.
Well,
So
yeah. So I feel like they're chasing, that leader's chasing something, right?
yeah.
They're chasing the test scores, they're chasing the recognition, the notoriety. They could be chasing, it could be a stick, it might not be a carrot. Maybe their district office is saying, I need you to be an A+ school, I need you to be a blue ribbon school. Maybe that's the pressure.
Sure.
But then that demands perfectionism. And
Mm,
one of the things I talk about in one of the chapters of my book is the cost of perfectionism.
mm,
You don't allow teachers to be innovative. You don't allow teachers to take chances if they always think that you're looking for perfection,
yeah. Yeah.
right? And so it's so critical. I look at education like I look at medicine. It's a practice, right? Imagine if
Mm,
our doctors weren't practicing medicine.
mm,
What if they just said, here's the way to treat patients.
yeah.
We're going to do it for the next 70 years this way,
Oh my gosh.
right? That's insane, but
Yeah.
that's what we do in education. But if we look at education as a practice, and I come to work every day with a mindset of, okay, I'm going to try something that yet there's research that says it works, but I'm going to tweak it with my population to see if it
Mhm.
works better, right?
Yeah.
Let's practice education.
But
Yeah,
you need
I,
to be
I
allowed to
agree.
fail. Like Nathaniel said, you have to be in a safe space for that.
Safe space.
Innovative equals failure at times. And it doesn't mean long-term failure. It might be short-term failure, but
Mhm.
not everything is going to look like an immediate success. And it's just hard when things get tough. Do teachers have someone who is supporting them through those tough times? Oftentimes, I think the answer is no.
Mm,
And I get it, the stakes are high. These are kids' lives and their futures. But that's what to me inhibits innovation. It's because if that thing, that new thing doesn't work immediately, and innovation often won't work immediately. That's shut down, and you can go back to whatever it is you did before, or whatever your principal wants you to do.
yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. Scott, when I wrote my book, gosh, it was my pandemic kind of like catharsis kind of like thing, right? I was like, I know Scott, I've worked with him, but I trust him so much. I'm going to ask him to write a review of my book. I'm going to ask him to read it. And so you, Scott, you were one of the first people that I invited, years ago for that. And then circle back around. The universe has a way of coming back around. You asked me to write a review about your book, and I
Of
was
course.
so honored to do that, man. So the leader you're not, man, oh man, that's a pithy title, boy. I like it. That is a catchy hook. So what inspired you? And why now? And let's talk about some of these chapters, man.
Yeah, so the inspiration was it's just a personal journey of leadership and personal growth that I've been on for probably I'd say the last 5 years, in terms of things I was studying in my devotional time to conversations I was having with other leaders, to the kind of discoveries I made for myself during the pandemic on what leadership is really about
Mm,
versus what it was during that short little season. And so all of those things combined really got me looking at and shining a light on the parts of leadership that nobody ever wants to talk about,
Hmm.
mm,
right? And so it was let's talk about it because I feel like when we project perfection, it puts up walls. It makes you
mm,
say, I can never do that. Or if I try that and fail, I'm not good enough. But when I tell you, you know what, I really struggle with a lot of aspects of leadership. Here are my blind spots. When I ask the question, when I sit down and say, I wonder what it's like to be led by me,
mm,
you know how what a rabbit hole that will take you into?
mm,
And oh my gosh, I can be intimidating. Oh
Hmm.
mm,
my gosh, no wonder why my teachers tighten up when I walk through the classroom.
mm,
Oh my, and so those thoughts, that reflection led me to on this journey of what other things am I doing that I need to really shine a light on. And I
mm,
know other leaders are doing too. And so I'm trying to help people with this book just uncover aspects of leadership that they know are there that they're struggling with. Maybe they haven't been able to name.
mm,
They don't have a relationship with another leader or a thought partner that they're willing to share with. Maybe
mm,
it's a conversation they just save for their spouse or best friend. But we're all in that same boat. None of us are
mm,
doing it absolutely perfect. Some of us react instead of respond. Some of us have trouble saying no. Some of us are not very humble because a lot of leaders are type A personalities.
yeah.
Um, and so just kind of unpacking all of those aspects of leadership that when you go to a conference, when you read leadership books, they don't talk about.
Hmm.
Mm, yeah. That's fascinating. One of the, Scott, one of the questions that I always would ask myself, um, when I was in the principal role. When I was in the superintendent role, I was just surviving. The question I would be like, do I still have a pulse today? So that was the only question that I would really
Or how
ask.
high is it?
Yeah, or oh my God, yeah, I know. Like, oh, I just, kept those baby aspirins with me, boy. You never knew. Um, but it was like, what do I want to keep doing? What do I want to start doing? And what do I want to stop doing? And I remember, like, as I was trying to be always very intentional. I love Marcus Aurelius, and the whole idea of like reflecting and journaling and, that type of
Stoicism.
work.
Yeah.
But the stop doing list, I always felt was never long enough. And I was like, like when I went back and if I go back and look at my journals, like I might have like one thing to stop doing and I'd have like a whole bunch of start doing and I'd have a whole bunch of like keep doing, but my stop doing list kind of sucked.
Mm.
And I think if I would have just spent a little bit more time in reflection about things I need to stop doing, I think I would have probably I think I could have improved my craft a little bit. Is there anything like because your book is like when I was reading through it, I was like, man, I wish I had this book to be able to reflect better. So I'm just curious what your thoughts about that on the importance of self-reflection and vulnerable reflection and as leaders because we get so busy we don't have time to really like debrief with ourselves.
Yeah. One of the blessings of my current position is it's a 30-minute drive to work.
Oh wow, yeah.
From and and I'm not stuck in traffic, so it's not an angry 30 minutes,
Yeah.
right?
Makes a difference.
It's a nice 70 mile an hour 30 minutes. And it really allows me a lot of reflection time. Allows me in the mornings to get ready, get my mind ready for the day, to leave home at home. And then after the day's over, it allows me to unpack and kind of ask myself, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? How can it be better tomorrow? And leave it there so when I get home, I'm husband and dad. And so
Mm,
that's been just critically important to me. And as a principal, I've always lived 30 minutes or more away from my school.
mm,
I think that time built in has been tremendous. If you live in your neighborhood and you're 5 minutes from home, I think a 30-minute walk, I think something to unwind and just think. And the other thing is, like, I tell my teenage kids this, they're always on their devices,
mm,
right? And it's the idea of you have to let your mind just not consume something
mm.
so that it can wander, think, and reset. I think it's important. It's an important moment of each day, and I do it. I'm intentional about it every morning. I read my scripture, I pray, I journal, and I reflect on just my spiritual life and my faith. But then professionally, I use those traffic times to ask myself the same questions.
Yeah.
What should I be saying no to?
Mm.
Right? Because every yes costs something,
That's right.
right? Every time I say yes, it's going to cost me time, energy, resource, something. And so if you keep saying yes, you're trying to do everything. And if you're doing everything, you're doing nothing,
Yeah.
right? You have to start simplifying what it is that we're approaching. And really, honestly, Nathaniel, I think it boils down to the most important thing is those relationships,
Yeah.
building relationships with your students and your staff, and building that trust, and knowing that they can make mistakes, and just that's been the most powerful reflection I've had.
Yeah. I love
Hey,
that fact.
Scott.
Yeah, one second. The fact that you said what if I'm saying yes to something, I'm saying no to other things too, the opportunity cost. But as leaders, we forget it's not us that's saying yes. We're saying yes on behalf of everyone that's under us. And so we're making decisions that aren't really about us. It's about everyone else's. So I think that's a really great point. So sorry, Dr. Worcester.
No, you're good, man. Doug Reeves talked about it. He calls it pulling the weeds. He's like, before you can get anything good to grow, you've got to pull all of those weeds of all the other things you're doing. Scott, have you heard of a book called The Extinction of Experience?
The extinction experience.
The Extinction of Experience by Christine Rosen.
I haven't.
So what you were saying right now just reminds me of it. It's a very interesting read. Just this quick summary. It's a reflective, original invitation to recover and cultivate the human experiences that have atrophied in our virtual world. So she talks like you were saying, just getting out, getting away from screens, getting away from devices. Uh, it's a great read. Just reminds us how important it is to live in this world and not just on your screen.
Yeah, love it.
And I'm not going to sit here and preach, hey, get out and exercise, sit in your back, sit on your couch, but don't have a device on.
Yeah.
Just consume
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Just be bored.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree. That's why I have to do structured yoga because I have to be around people and I can't do it by myself because I'm way too ADHD. I got to be in community with people that are going to look at me funny if I start screwing up. And I need that time, not just physically, like I need it. I need that namaste. I need that savasana where you're just laying there, and just trying to let your mind work. So I have to force myself to do that. Right, Dr. Worcester? You know what I'm talking about, man. We've
I
done some
do.
yoga together, brother. We
Yeah.
got we
Yeah.
got you. Scott, I want to know about these chapters, man, because like every chapter is like its own book. What I love, everything is that's what skillfully written, brother, skillfully written.
Thank you.
And so like every chapter is almost like a standalone, like something on itself. So, what are some of your favorite chapters? Some of these lessons, from the leader that you're not. I'd like to dig into that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that comment because, I'm trying to think, how do I follow up on this? And I think I probably could go deeper into each chapter, but,
Yeah.
I think I really, I enjoyed chapter 2 talking about the idea of humble confidence, right?
Mm,
Because I'm a type A personality. I exude confidence. I've been told by people very near and dear to me, Scott, you intimidate me. And I
mm,
and I sit there, and when I hear that, I don't get hurt by it. It's like, why? Why am I don't want to intimidate you.
hmm
And so, but I know that I exude confidence when I talk about especially educational things. That's the only thing I know how to talk about.
mm.
If I wish I had some other skill set to talk about, but
The Seahawks.
The Seahawks, I
The
guess.
Seahawks.
I can make some stuff up about them too. Um, but the idea of humble confidence, which almost seems contradictory, but it really
Mm,
comes down to strength and vulnerability have to be able to coexist,
mm,
right? So I can say I don't know. I
mm,
have to be able to say I don't know because I don't know all the time. And sometimes I should be able to say I don't know, even if I do know, because I want to empower someone else to lead,
mm.
right? What do you think?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? And so I've taught myself at this stage in my career to be more intentional about asking more questions and being a more humbly confident leader. Now, if you were to ask some of my staff members how humble is Scott, they might not say, he's the most humble guy, but I'm definitely striving to have more humility in my leadership.
Mm, mm.
So
I
that's go ahead.
No, no, I know. I love that. Like, I have to work on that. I'm a very, very confident person as well, but I'm also learning to be confident in my ignorance with some things. And so, like, Eric and I push each other all the time. Like, that's why he's one of my best buds, because, like, Eric will think of things from a different perspective. Eric, I hope you appreciate my perspective as well.
Yep.
And it's not that I'm saying I've had to learn how to phrase, like, I'm genuinely having a hard time understanding this right now, as opposed to saying, no, you're wrong. Just like little things that I've learned to say that's helping me separate myself from trying to have the answer. So, like, when Eric comes up with this great idea, and it's like, I'm having, like, okay, I'm having cognitive dissonance. I need to let him know. It's just like, I'm having some cognitive dissonance right now, and I'm going to need some time to reflect on that before I can give some answers. Right, Dr. Worcester? I mean, we have some good banter back and forth,
Yeah,
right?
and I mean that's how growth happens. Just a willingness to listen and learn. Doesn't mean you agree. We think differently about certain things, but as long as you're open to listening and refining what you think and what you know, what you practice, I mean that's how growth happens. It can be just an affirmation of what you do. But I think also for both of us, hopefully you too, Scott, you'll change. You'll refine what you think. I know as a principal, I wasn't always right, and sometimes I thought I was, and it's easy to look back in hindsight at some things, but you have to be vulnerable as a leader, like you
Mhm.
said, Scott, to growing. And I think you can have, I think I had this with my teachers where sometimes I felt I had to be right or I had to
Mm,
know the research or whatever. And I didn't always empower my teachers as I should have because they might be just as passionate about reading instruction or about math practices. Maybe they were building a thinking classroom. And as a leader, you don't have to, nor do you have all the answers. There's just that arrogance of leadership that I
mm,
find to be very off-putting, but also very prevalent.
yeah, yeah, I
It's
agree.
almost, and it's kind of taught to us like we're supposed to be that way.
Mm,
It's the
mm-hmm,
cultural expectation of leadership is you need to have all the answers. When I think about the idea of servant leadership, right, which is not being the one who knows everything, but it's the one who's inviting others to lead alongside of you.
Love
mm-hmm,
it.
hmm. Yeah, no,
So yeah,
absolutely.
and that's something again that's come later in my career. And
Yep.
you had a great reflection, Eric. Right here, you're unpacking that what I hope my readers will do, which is to go, wow, and I think about just culturally when sometimes I'll get caught up in the weeds of Twitter or X and I'll see the bantering and it's so frustrating. And when you see it on the news and one of the things I've tried to do over these last few years is step back and say, okay, I'm willing to admit that everything that I believe to be true may not be.
Yep.
Every position that I hold dear and sacred might not be. Can you do the same before we engage in this discourse?
Mm, mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
I think if we step back and if we can go into every conversation saying, my positions might be wrong,
Hmm.
your positions might be wrong, I think it
Yep.
opens up for that learning. And that's to
Yeah.
me what the humble confidence is, right? I can confidently argue my point, but I'm humble enough to admit that it might be wrong and I'm willing to learn.
yeah.
Love
So
it.
And I think, like, as someone who does a lot of presentations, um, I think that's something that I try to do. Don't always land on that, but, like, when I'm introducing a topic, I'll say, I'm sharing my lived experience. I don't know if, building family engagement is going to be the best for your school, but this is my experience. And I've got my data. I'd love to know your data that supports it. If you can take one nugget to keep doing or start doing or stop doing, that's a win. You know what I mean? We're facilitating conversations. I think oftentimes we think that, when you're speaking, you've got to be an expert. I think you got to be an expert learner before you can be an expert leader, and I think that that's something that we miss. So I love that chapter, man. Give me another one. Give me another chapter that really resonated with you.
So I wrote a chapter on asking the right questions
Mm,
and kind of leaning into the idea that curiosity is a superpower in leadership, right? Instead of being the one that has all the answers, I've learned that when I ask questions of my teachers, when I go to the staff meeting, not with answers, but with questions, the buy-in increases, the
mm,
creativity increases, the innovation increases, the empowerment. And then I have leaders that start bubbling up because they have answers. And
mm,
so that's allowed me to step back and empower others. And so I wrote a whole chapter on just how do you do that? How do you ask the right questions in the right situations? They unlock creativity, it unlocks ownership, it really opens up your team to feel more like a team.
mm,
So
mm.
that was one of the chapters I really enjoyed writing and getting into. It's again another area that I am not claiming to be perfect in. I still will answer questions and I'll reflect on the conversation, be like, dang it, I shouldn't have answered the question. I should have helped them get to the answer themselves. But
It's hard, man. I ain't got time to be listening. I know the answer.
I'm
I don't have all day. I'm going to
yeah,
tell you, just meet. You know what I mean? Just write your damn objectives on the board. I don't want to get into. I know, but it's hard, right? It's
it's
hard,
hard.
man.
It's
Oh
hard.
my God.
And it's yeah, I guess I mean, and sometimes it depends on like just the mood and thinking about emotions. And so I have another chapter on just it's called emotional agility.
Mm,
And really checking your emotions when you're at work and being more mindful of those opportunities and looking at them as opportunities and not being so frantic and
mm,
and stressed out that you're always in, I'm going to put out that fire. I'm going to put out that fire. I'm going to stop. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to notice. I'm going to pause and I'm going to pivot, right?
mm,
I'm going to do something. I'm going to ask a question instead of giving an answer.
mm.
I'm going to listen before I talk. I'm going to watch what everybody else is doing in this situation before I tell people what to do in this situation.
Yeah, yeah.
And so just kind of being mindful and trying to build my EQ up um, over these last few years has been something that's been a personal journey of mine,
Mm,
managing my emotions, understanding that really my emotions impact a lot of people. When you're a
yeah.
principal, right? When you're the building
Mhm.
leader, oh, he's in a bad mood, stay out of
Yep.
there. And everybody,
Everyone knows too.
right?
Everyone knows. Everyone knows.
Yeah, so you have to have a much higher EQ than anybody else. It's that idea of when the principal sneezes, everyone catches a cold.
Yeah.
It's kind of
But Scott, no one teaches you this stuff, man.
nobody teaches you
I
that.
never learned this stuff. I mean, I know how to gather all stakeholders. You know what I mean?
They're not stakeholders anymore.
They're not even stakeholders anymore. God,
What are they now? What's
I
the
gotta
what's the
keep.
new term?
I think they turned from stakeholder to community partners to
Oh,
educational partners.
okay. All right.
Um,
It'll be
Gather
something
a
else.
bunch of
It'll be
people.
something else next year.
I
Yeah,
know. I
I
tell you
still
what.
call them stakeholders. I don't know.
So I think all leaders need like lessons in like almost like psychotherapy. My wife's a therapist and like I'm going like when you're talking I'm just like this is what she learns. Like I need this stuff, man. Just how to be a list, how to shut up and listen and ask good questions. Check, like you said, check your EQ before you try to help anyone's IQ. I mean, all that stuff is important. Eric, man, we need a do-over. We need to get Scott's book.
Yeah.
We need a do-over.
All right, you want a co-principal somewhere, pal?
Let's
Let's
start.
let's open up one of those schools we talked
Let's
about.
start a charter school or something. I don't
All
know, man. What's going
right.
on over here? You know what I
I'm in.
mean?
I'm game. I'm
So
game.
Scott, so what else is going on with your book, man? Like writing the book is the easy part. Talking about the book is the hard part, sometimes. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I've seen you on some podcasts, man, and you're with Jimmy Casas, right? You're with his publishing company, correct? How's
connected.
that? Yeah, how's that experience been going?
They've been remarkable. They've been so incredibly supportive. I'm not somebody that has a large social media presence. has a background in marketing. I
Yeah.
don't, I want to get the word out, not because I want to sell my book. I want to get the word out because I think the content is helpful and I want to help
Mm.
leaders grow and I want them to discover some of these things before they get out of the principalship or the superintendency or what.
Yeah.
I mean, what's funny is some of the people that have read my book aren't even in education and they loved it.
That's great. That
So
what
it's
a
like,
compliment that
It's
yeah,
a
is.
good
it's
test,
like
a good
What a
testament.
compliment that
surprise.
is.
And my wife, of course, she read it. She was one of my first readers, and she's like, "This is great." And she's not in school leadership, but she's like, "This is so."
She's looking at you going, "This came from you?" I
Yeah.
can't even get you to take out the garbage, and here is writing about the leader you're not.
Oh,
What's
no.
going on with that?
So
Oh,
yeah, so Connect Ed and Jimmy's group have been phenomenal just for the whole editing process. Some of the marketing, they've been great. Um, this is my second podcast. I don't know what the next steps are. I just know that I really want to help people. I've got a study guide that'll be available for free
oh, right
coming
on.
out the next few weeks. That you can go through on your own, or you can call me up and I'll do a Zoom with your leadership team or something. Or if you want me to come to your district or come to your conference and speak to this, I'm happy to do that as well. I think it's an important message designed to help people connect. I think about networking and how important it is to build a
Yeah.
network of leaders. I think
Yep.
these are the conversations that connect people.
Mm,
When you say, this is what I'm not doing well, I can have a conversation with somebody as opposed to, hey man, I'm crushing it. Look at
mm.
all the things I'm doing. And they project that perfectionism. It might be impressive, but I don't know if I really want to connect with you.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. Eh,
Vulnerability.
And Scott, I think, you know, we gaslight a lot in this profession. There's a lot of gaslighting going on in education. And I think we need to do a better job of listening and valuing um, that first attempt at learning, right? That failure, right? And I think that's where the magic happens is when we feel safe enough to be able to say, I screwed up today. This teacher quit because of me. This parent got really pissed off because of the system that we created. These students aren't learning, not because of the curriculum, because of the delivery, right? Like we need to just not beat ourselves up, but feel safe enough to say, like, this is a learning profession. And the best leaders are the best learners. And we're going to have to give ourselves grace. And I think that's how we grow is when we give ourselves grace. So I don't know, Dr. Worcester, if you have any finer points to put on that that superpower of vulnerability like Scott was talking about.
Man, no, I agree with you. Um, um, sorry, I lost my train,
Come on,
Provincio.
man, you got to be more vulnerable. What's going
As
on
I
with you
do
with
from time
that?
to time. It's just tough because leadership sets the condition by which that can happen. And I know there are a lot of leaders who themselves have to answer to somebody else, um, just with that desire for instant results. And if something doesn't go right, they might want someone's head for that. And it's a really challenging place to work when you know that any kind of failure, even if it's one based on what you told me, is going to be on me. So why would I
Mm,
innovate? Why would I even stay in education after a while
mm,
if that's the
yeah,
kind of pressure that's on me? So Scott, I appreciate the lessons in that book. Sometimes I think we write the book that we wished that we had had starting out. Was
mm,
was that the case for you? And Nathaniel, I think too, you learned a lot going through your journey
sure.
as a principal. And I'm sure you would have wished when you started, you had had that book to help guide you.
Yeah, yeah.
Scott, same thing?
Absolutely. And it's funny is it ended up being the book that I wished I'd had 20 years,
Mm,
you
Yeah.
know, because I've learned a lot of hard lessons and a lot of those hard lessons made it into the book. Um, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, had I not learned those lessons, would I have written the book? Then I get into
sure. That's a good point.
yeah,
That's a good
Yep.
point. Chicken and
so,
egg.
those were all powerful learning opportunities that now I can share with somebody else that
Yeah.
makes their journey a little bit easier, but they still need to make mistakes and grow from them and learn from them as well. So,
Yeah.
one of my favorite quotes, and you said something that kind of alluded to this, Nathaniel, is every system is perfectly designed to achieve the results that it gets.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, yeah, you're right. We create these systems that tick people off or fail, or well, that's because that's the way it was designed. And
That's
Yeah.
right.
we do, we have to be able to say, okay, I did it wrong. I messed up. I'm not perfect. There was an error. What are we going to do to fix it? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's powerful.
Well, Scott Borba, listen, man, there's two books that every school leader needs to have in their leadership, graduate program. One is that book from Sergio Vanni.
Sergio Bonnie.
Sergio Vanni. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, that's a great pull.
I can't remember the name of the book,
That's
but I remember
fantastic.
Sergio Vanni
Yeah.
and The Leader You're Not, the new Sergio Vanni, Scott Borba. There you go. Those are the two books that everyone needs to have.